we're going to check in with Coach Lance Reisland. He's been out there with us at training camp all week, taking things in, soaking it in, all the fun. We're going to get his thoughts and breakdown of each, and we're going to go step by step through these quarterbacks, Nick.
Quarterback by quarterback, if you will.
Yeah, we're going to go quarterback by quarterback to really just to be fair about it and get his breakdown of each guy, what he's seeing on the field during these drills, these reps, etc. To really go in depth as we try and really kind of get into the nuts and bolts of, what they're doing, how they're doing it, is it going to work and whatnot. So let's head on out to the fan hotline and welcome in Coach Riz. Thanks so much for taking some time with us here on a Sunday. Boy, do we have a lot to get to. I know you're enjoying training camp just as much as I am.
Well, I'll tell you what, the heat the first 2 days, I thought I was going down. Yesterday was a little bit better. That heat has been knocking me down a little bit, for sure.
I call it I call it the extra crispy with a side of Stanley steamer. That's what I'm calling the heat and humidity we've been getting.
Oh, absolutely. It's been, obviously where we're at, especially down in that field, where we're standing on that turf area, it's been boiling. Obviously, I think it's affecting them a little bit. It'll be interesting tomorrow because it's going to be hot again tomorrow. I look forward to the pads going on and kind of really diving into these position issues that everybody's talking about, because for me, quarterbacks included, it doesn't really matter until the pads go on and you start seeing live bullets. So tomorrow we should start seeing a much better or clearer picture tomorrow.
Yeah, let's start with the quarterbacks, because obviously that's what everyone has been focusing on, and understandably so when they're doing an alleged four-man quarterback competition, even though Shador Sanders isn't getting any meaningful reps anywhere. Let's go step by step, if we could, Coach, with these quarterbacks and what you're seeing from each guy. I'm going to start with Kenny Pickett, because it feels to me like they're on an exploratory mission here to see what this guy has, and that's why he's getting so many of these first team reps and why he's so often the first up in the 11-on-11 drills. What are you seeing from Kenny?
Well, you can see why Kevin Stefanski likes him, obviously, with Kevin getting the keys back to calling the offense, right? Kenny's a guy who has really good feet, right? So he can throw the boot, waggle. He also is a fairly good decision maker coming out of Pitt. That's what he did so well at Pitt, is being in spread formations, doing things, making quick decisions. I've been really impressed with him in the open field. Now, they haven't had great pass protection, but a lot of that has to do with pads aren't on yet. And it's really hard to pass protect as an offensive lineman with no pads on. So that should improve tomorrow. But I think what you get out of Kenny Pickett is he's young enough where you think that you can Kevin kind of thinks that he can get the most out of him. I thought he did a pretty good job in the red zone yesterday, both with the one-on-ones and in the, when they do the modified 7-on-7s and the 11-on-11s and things they're doing. I thought he threw the ball yesterday fairly well. Obviously, we're trying to watch every throw, and you're standing out there with me. They've had lots of goods and lots of bad, and Kenny's been a part of that. He's done some really good things. The most impressive thing for me with Kenny so far has been his ability to move. And if they do struggle with pass protection, that becomes a huge factor, especially in their boot and waggle game on first and second down.
Going right on down the line to Joe Flacco, the other veteran in the room with these four quarterbacks. Obviously, we've seen Joe have success with Kevin Stefanski before, spent last season with the Indianapolis Colts, where he was able to get a little bit of action as a backup when they were without Anthony Richardson. What have you seen thus far out of the all-reliable Joe Flacco?
Well, Daryl's right. Kenny Pickett's gotten most of it. Like when they get him to a drill, Kenny Pickett's usually up there first and Flacco's behind him. Now, Flacco, for me, is the guy that gives you the best chance to win. And for me, at all levels of football, that has to be the number one goal, winning, right? If you develop a guy and you're losing games, you won't be coaching him when he's developed, right? So I think what they have to do, for me, Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to win early. And if winning is the most important thing, and who knows what their thought process is, but if you're thinking about what they want to do on offense, right? They don't have an elite, obviously an elite receiving core, but they did draft Fannin, who gives them 12 personnel. You can take some play action shots if you can establish the run. You can win on first down, which makes second down a little bit easier for both the play caller and the quarterback. Then you can take some play action shots to Jerry Jeudy or some boot waggle on first down to Fannin and Njoku. So you can kind of do those things. I think Joe Flacco, because he's seen so many coverages and seen so many fronts, he gives you that best option to win early. Now, as the season goes along, I also don't believe in giving guys a shot. At the NFL, watching those guys every day, you got to earn your shot. Now, if they're all equal, then give them a shot. But I believe in giving a guy a shot because, we want to see what he can do. You got to earn what you can do. And that's kind of the thing at all levels, but especially in the NFL. Flacco is very poised out there. Flacco still has an elite arm, and I'm thinking about play action shots. You're trying to create some chunk plays, which the Browns have to do on offense if they're going to be successful. So for me, Joe Flacco, even though he's not getting all the reps, and jumping up first, for me, Joe Flacco is the best option to win on week 1.
Speaking of guys getting shots for the sake of giving them shots, Dillon Gabriel, I was somewhat beside myself yesterday watching some of the individual stuff on air where he was missing throws. He just was inaccurate. I call him a great 7-on-7 quarterback, and then just everything else, maybe he'll be like the new NFL Colt McCoy guy, where he's just going to bounce around the league and be a backup and an emergency guy for teams. But am I being too hard on Dillon?
Well, I think at this point in time, all the quarterbacks, I think they're getting way too much praise when they're making good plays and way too much criticism when they're making bad plays. Because you're back to square one tomorrow when pads go on, all of them. So your criticism was, I don't think your criticism was too harsh. We were standing there together yesterday, and he struggled a little bit with his accuracy when they start getting live pressure. Some of the issues that people have with his size kind of came to the forefront, and you get to say that's what we're all talking about. And for me, I was really high on Dillon Gabriel coming out of college, and I'm still really high on him. The tackles at Oregon and tackles at Oklahoma, they're really big too. But he's a guy who's going to have to prove it because he is an outlier. Now, I can see why Kevin Stefanski likes him so much. He's a quick processor, especially when they get in that empty game with the big personnel, finding matchups. He throws well on the run. He throws well from different launch points, which is what he has to do at his size. Like I said, I think he's produced way too much at the college level, at the high level, not to be intrigued. Can he carry that over? Can he be an outlier? Now, I thought he had a really solid first 3 days. Yesterday, I don't think you're being critical at all. I thought yesterday he struggled a little bit in all the drills, on air with the group, one-on-ones, all those things that they do throughout a practice. He had a tough day yesterday. I'm interested to see how he bounces back, but more importantly, I'm interested to see how all these guys do when the pads go on.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that real quick. Does it feel to you as you're watching how they're doing these reps, like they're preparing Dillon to start at some point this season? Maybe not in week 1, but do you get the feeling that that's kind of what they're doing with him? Like they're getting ready to brace for impact, that we're going to see this dude at some point?
Joe, I think it's a great question. So what I've tried to watch during practice is what are they doing when they're in, what are they doing and what is the defense doing when they're getting their reps? And Dillon is getting a lot more thrown at him in terms of formations and sets and defenses, where with Shedeur, they've kind of make sure that they're setting him up for success, which I think is important as a quarterback. I think it's important to get those hitches and those levels concept that he likes to throw, that Kevin likes to throw off that wide zone. So they're doing things for Shedeur and Dillon a little bit differently. It feels like Dillon, I think he's playing into his strength, right? He's been around. He's played a lot of college football. He's taken a lot of snaps at a lot of different places. So he's seen a lot of different things. And I think that processing and that experience is showing up. When you look at Shedeur, everybody's got to realize, first of all, there's nothing that Shedeur can't do or can't read. He's coming out of Colorado where he was the offense. There was no run game. There was no pass protection. And when you do that, you learn bad habits. So I think they're trying to get some of those footwork habits, some of the fundamentals, and just some of the, it's not that he can't read stuff, but if you're going to have deep, high level reads, multiple 1, 2, 3 progressions, you got to have pass protection. They didn't have that at Colorado. And I thought Pat Shurmur did a great job of trying to get the ball out of his hands and use what he does really well, which is anticipate, and he's got great accuracy.
Obviously, Shedeur Sanders has given the Browns, some really highlight-worthy throws early in camp that they have not been shy about plastering all over social media. But Coach Riz, I want to ask you what you've seen from Shedeur Sanders, just the good and the bad, understanding that it has been limited reps with mostly the third and fourth team, right?
Well, when those people are interviewing him, and I do the football stuff, but I try to be out there when Daryl and Mary Kay and Dan and Ashley, they're asking questions and they're asking these guys. I think Shedeur, first of all, handles himself very well. You can tell he grew up with Dillon Sanders as his father, right? Because he handles the questions coming at him very well. What you've seen out of Shedeur is kind of what I thought. You see good accuracy. You see more of a football player. He doesn't have elite traits. He doesn't have an elite arm. He's not super fast with his feet, but what he does, he makes football plays. He made a good one yesterday in the red zone to Floria. Again, it comes down to, that's why I try to watch as many throws as you can and try to be there every day, because you can post on social media, you can make a guy look really good or really bad depending on what you put on there. And for the most part, these guys have been high and low, all four of them throughout camp, kind of excluding Joe Flacco, because when it comes down to like live action 11 on 11s, he's usually not getting a ton of reps in there. But the other guys have been both high and low. Pass protection hasn't been very good, things like that. So for me, Shedeur is he's a guy that I can actually say is getting way too much praise when he makes a good throw, but he's also getting way too much criticism when he makes a bad throw. Again, I think he's a guy, when you watch him on film at Colorado, I think he's a guy who's going to play better when the lights go on. Now, I could be wrong. I could just coach at high school for a long, long time, but there are guys who just play better when the lights go on. And we don't know what he's doing in meetings. We don't know what he's doing leading up to the preparation. All the stuff that he's done, it comes down to, can he play when the lights go on? And we'll find that out very soon. But I've been impressed with how he's handled himself. I've been impressed with his, his work ethic. There's make no question, he's the fourth string guy right now. And the good thing is with that is it doesn't matter where he starts right now, because when the pads go on, that can switch really, really quick. But I've expressed to people, he's not getting the reps or the quality reps that the other guys are getting. Whether that's warranted or not, we don't know, but that's the reality of it.
All right, Coach, there's 86 other guys on this roster right now. Let's talk about a few of those guys too. Harold Fannin Jr. might be one of my favorite rookies in this class. No disrespect to other members, but when I look at potential impact this year, you mentioned him earlier about the 12 personnel. What are you seeing from him, and what type of impact do you think he can have offensively based on your observations here early in camp?
Well, he is an undersized tight end. We see that right away, but he is a super talented guy. And the thing that he brought from BG, the 117 catches, the 1,500 yards receiving, you see all that, even at this level. So him and Njoku give you a outstanding 12 personnel package, and that you're limited at the receiver. I think what he really needs to do to make his position flexibility, he's got to play a little bit of that fullback, a little bit of that H, a little bit what Harrison Bryant used to do for the Browns. The ability to move, motion, play inside, play outside, play fullback, play tight end, play off the ball, do a bunch of different things. Because if the Browns can get in 12 personnel and make the defense get in regular personnel with 3 linebackers, then they have the advantage. And that's where Kevin Stefanski's at his best in play design. So if he can prove that he can be, he doesn't have to be a devastating blocker, but he can be a good enough blocker where they can put him at fullback or put him at tight end, and they have to respect the run game. And the run game starts up front, right, with those 5 guys up front. So if he can prove that he can be a more efficient blocker inside the box, I think it gives Kevin Stefanski the best of what he does, right? His ability to create formations out of big personnel and find the matchups. Then you don't need all those receivers if you can get Judy on a linebacker or get Judy on a safety. So I think as camp goes along, they're really going to focus on what he needs to work on, which is that interior blocking, because all the things came in, what I've seen through summer and the mandatory mini camp and the rookie camp, he can catch the ball and he can run routes, and he's elite when he gets the ball in his hand. So that'll be, for me, what I'm watching is his ability to block with inside the box.
Lance, you hit a point there that this wide receiver room for the Browns is just super thin. And I read and watched your film review on Luke Floria, the undrafted free agent receiver out of Kent State, local kid from Mentor High School, who is giving everybody a little bit of Julian Edelman vibes. What do you see out of Luke Floria? And could this be a guy, just because of how thin the Browns receiving room is, that could actually make that 53-man roster?
Well, for me, I would say that Floria has not been a feel-good story. First, he comes from Kent, comes from Mentor. He's a Northeast Ohio kid. It's not a feel-good story. This kid can play. Now, the concerns you have about Luke Floria are there. He is short. He is tiny. But for what he needs to do for the Browns, and if he was used in a way in the slot, I think the Browns could use him in a way that would make them really successful. He's got great short area burst. He's quicker than he is fast. But if you think of that slot receiver working the option routes, working against those linebackers, working against safeties, some guys just know how to get open. He understands leverage. He understands blind spots. He understands how to push on the DB. He's been very well coached both in high school and college, and you can see that. And he's just got the ability to get open. Now, what he does for an offense, if the Browns are going back to a power run game and you want to get an 11 personnel and you need a slot receiver, he might be a guy that takes that 7th, 8th guy out of the box. And if they're not going to honor that run, then you just, pull the ball and you flick it out there and you get easy yards. Again, I think the Browns got to do whatever they got to do to get to 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, because if they can do that, then they can at least dictate the personnel they're getting from the defense, and they can stay away from those exotic looks on 2nd and 3rd and long that lead to turnovers with pass rush and coverage. So for me, I've been very impressed with Luke Floria. Obviously, once again, like every other position, we're seeing the pads go on, but he's been very impressive, and not just like as a feel-good thing. He's good at what he does in the slot, and I think that's a position where you can be undersized if you're used that way.
Coach, the linebacker we know is not a premium position in Jim Schwartz's defense, but it's still important. They lost JOK for the season. We don't know if he's ever going to play again. Jordan Hicks, he retires. They draft Carson Schlesinger, which turned some heads there with the 33rd overall pick. Do they have enough at linebacker this year?
Well, I think Schlesinger is going to have to be really good. Now, what Schlesinger does very good, he led Power 4 football in solo tackles last year. He's a really good tackler in space. That's very important in Schwartz's scheme because you're going to be in some man coverage. But with that defensive line that I think can be really good, for me, that's their best, without question, that defensive line, the depth of it and the talent they have is their best position group. Those guys got to clean it up, right? Those guys got to make sure they're making sure tackles, and that's what he does. Schlesinger's also a lot bigger than I thought, so I think he can hold up his lower half. He's got some tree trunk legs, which should help him from tackle to tackle. Obviously, Baker's going to be a guy that has to help them. And then Diabate's a guy. When you go see him in person, he's just such a physical specimen. Can he do it? But in this defense, you got to be able to cover some tight ends. You got to be able to cover some backs out. But more importantly, you got to tackle. You got to clean up with the mess that the defensive line has made. You got to make sure you clean it up. And if they can do that, I think they'll be okay. I agree with you. JOK, when you watch him on film, and the more you do watch him on film, JOK was on the verge of being, one of the top 2, 3, 4 linebackers in the league with his ability to explode and make plays. So replacing him is just not something you do easy. But in this scheme, it's about it's the best transition you can get. Schlesinger's going to have to be a really good player at a young age, but you see him in practice. He's kind of got that veteran, kind of savvy to him, where he just does the drills, doesn't say much, seems like a really good leader, runs very well, and like I said, he's a lot thicker lower body than I thought. So it is an area of concern. It's the biggest area of concern on the defense for sure.
Coach, looking forward to hearing more of you here on The Fan. You can read him at cleveland.com, his gridiron IQ work that he does, which is outstanding, also on Spectrum as well. Thanks so much for the time, and I'll see you at practice tomorrow.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. We'll see you tomorrow, Daryl.
You betcha. There he is. Lance Reisland, Coach Riz.